Daddy. I'm all your baby. I made 2 different songs and I put them on an iPod and I gifted it to him. I signed it back. It was real cute.
Oh,
so cute. Like,
that's cute.
I just used to be so
That's
passionate.
very thoughtful.
For sure. And he told me he did not want to listen to it because he didn't want to. He said, I don't want to join you.
Mariah the Scientist finally broke down and confirmed the thing we had been dreading all along. From being handed a record deal before she had ever performed a single show in her life.
They gave me this stuff, and I've never done this, though. They never even heard me sing in person. I've never done a show at this point. I've never, ever performed. I literally just made some songs on SoundCloud, and these people signed me. It was like...
So you felt bad for taking the money?
I did.
To standing by a man facing life in prison while the whole internet turned her love into a soap opera.
What's up, baby? Merry Christmas.
Thank you.
I love you.
Love you, B.
I miss you. And I love you.
The most polarizing girl in R&B has a story far messier than the music ever let on. So let's get into it. Before Mariah the Scientist became one of the most talked about women in hip-hop, she was simply a college student with a very different career in mind. Her name back then was Mariah Amani Buckles, and she was a biology major at St. John's University in New York City, chasing a very specific and very ambitious dream.
So I went to college. I got a scholarship.
Yes.
To go to St. John's University
Yes.
in New York for biology.
She wanted to become a pediatric anesthesiologist. She had gotten there by being sharp from the beginning. Born on October 27, 1997, in Atlanta, Georgia, she was raised by a father who worked as a police officer and a mother who worked for a church, a household that split apart around the time she started middle school. That early fracture would quietly shape everything she wrote later, but at the time, she channeled it into being the kind of student who moves fast and works hard. She graduated high school a year early and crossed state lines for New York with a scholarship and a plan for medical school. What no one watching that plan could see was that her real gift had nothing to do with anesthesiology. Long before she thought of herself as a singer, Mariah was a writer. She had first tasted music through her elementary school choir, but choir was never where her heart lived. What she truly gravitated toward was writing, journaling, and poetry, pouring her emotions and a stubborn sense of realism onto the page from a young age. That distinction between singer and writer sits at the center of everything people argue about with Mariah the Scientist today. And in her dorm room in Queens, that writer was quietly waking up. Between biology lectures and study sessions, she was scribbling poems to deal with what she was feeling, unaware that those private pages were about to hijack her entire plan. The medicine career she had crossed state lines to chase was about to be abandoned almost overnight. Cooped up in her dorm at St. John's, Mariah started setting her poems to beats she found on YouTube, turning her private writing into songs. The story goes that she made a whole collection of them for a guy she was dating, the rapper Lil Yachty, who by his own later admission never even listened and treated her poorly.
By the time I got to college, we started dating a little bit or whatever, and I felt like his career was like taking off and he had all these things and I didn't know what to do, like, or what I could give him because I was just a broke college student. And so I thought, well, he likes music, I like music, let me make him a song. And so that's what I did. I made 2 different songs and I put them on an iPod and I gifted it to him.
Her friends, though, heard something and pushed her to keep going. Then, during her junior year, she made a decision that stunned everyone. She dropped out to chase music, confiding in only her mother, so committed to cutting the cord that she never went back to her dorm for her belongings. She walked away from the pre-med life, the scholarship, the whole plan, and bet everything on a dream she had barely started chasing. That decision is also where the now famous name comes from. She could not just go by Mariah because the world already has a Mariah, and nobody was going to out-Mariah Carey. Because she had been on a biology track on her way to medicine, she was, as one joke around her put it, damn near a scientist.
And that's where the name come from, Mariah the Scientist. You
I had
wanted
a
to.
scholarship there for biology.
Really?
And I dropped out. in the third year.
Oh, damn, you were
I
almost
know.
there.
I was almost.
The nickname stuck, got polished into Mariah the Scientist, and a stage identity was born out of the very career she had just quit. In January 2018, she quietly released her debut EP, a 6-track project called To Die For, onto SoundCloud. She was not entrenched in the New York scene. She had no machine behind her, no buzz, no cosign. Just a former biology student with a handful of songs on a streaming site. And yet, in less than a year, that tiny upload would catch the ear of someone who changed the entire trajectory of her life. That someone was Tory Lanez. The Canadian singer and rapper came across Mariah's music and quickly became her mentor, an instrumental force in getting her career off the ground. A lot of people do not realize how foundational that connection was to her rise, but he was there guiding her and bringing her on tour as she developed her sound.
When I met Tory was like, I don't want anything from this. I'm just your mentor, and I just want to see
Did you
shine.
believe that?
I wanted to.
Okay, right.
I wanted to. My parents were like, we don't know this. We don't know anything about this.
He signed her to his label, One Umbrella, and she also landed a deal with RCA Records. Then things moved fast. Tory executive produced her 2019 debut album, Master, praised for its retro sound and vivid songwriting. What stands out is the sheer speed. The industry is full of talented artists who get signed and languish for years, never given a proper debut. Mariah's team did the opposite. They struck while the iron was hot. That period felt surreal. She signed a deal before she had ever even done a show, marveling that these people simply handed her money without anyone ever coming to the studio to verify she could pull it off. They just coughed it up, as she put it, and it stunned her. Nobody checked her skill threshold. Nobody made sure she was ready. They saw something marketable, and they moved.
And they gave me this stuff, and I've never done this, though. They never even heard me sing in person. I've never done a show at this point. I've never, ever performed. I literally just made some songs on SoundCloud, and these people signed me. It was like...
So you felt bad for taking the money?
I did.
On one hand, you take your blessings, and no one says she should have turned down a life-changing opportunity. But this is where the rockiness in her career took root. A label threw serious money at a young green artist and then had to figure out what they actually had, all while the shows were already being booked. The consequence of moving that fast arrived immediately. Across 2019 and 2020, Mariah was booked for enormous festivals, the kind of stages most artists do not touch until they are many years into their careers. She was playing Coachella and Pitchfork, snagging these massive slots right off the bat. There was just one enormous problem. She had almost no performance experience at all. She was, at her core, a studio musician, a writer who made songs in a controlled room. Thrown onto a festival stage with little preparation, everything she had not learned was exposed. She went viral, but not the way anyone wants to. People clowned her stage presence, her demeanor, and above all, her vocals.
I don't think Mariah the Scientist is a whisper singer. I just think she's a bad singer. I want to do a video solely on her because people are like, well, no, she's a good writer. And I'm like, she could very well be a good writer and be behind the scenes. Why does she have to be at Rolling Loud with her voice cracking?
For a huge number of people, that was their entire introduction to her. Not the EP, not the debut album, but a shaky viral clip and a caption asking whether this girl could even sing. The problem with that introduction is that it was almost impossible to shake. Most listeners had no context. They did not know how recently she had been signed, how new she was, how naive she still was to the machine. They just saw a video of a singer struggling and assumed, reasonably, that a professional artist on a festival stage would at least be prepared. She was not, and the internet is not in the business of grading on a curve. She has spoken about how brutal that stretch was. She did not know how to work her in-ear monitors. She did not know what she sounded like to a crowd because she had never sung for people before. Her first big shows were, quite literally, her first shows ever. Rolling Loud, one of the biggest stages in the country, was only her second time performing in front of an audience. She was learning the most public parts of the job in front of millions, and the mistakes became permanent internet fixtures. Out of that rocky start grew the debate that has followed Mariah the Scientist ever since. And it is a fierce one. She is arguably the most polarizing girl in modern R&B. On one side are listeners who deeply appreciate her, who assign real, almost profound value to her songwriting and her vulnerability. On the other are people who simply do not get it and who will scream that from the rooftops. At the heart of the fight was a question that sounds absurd to ask about an R&B singer. Can she actually sing? An already fatigued audience, tired of half-singers who treat concept and visuals as the main event and singing as an afterthought, saw her as the antithesis of the genre's values. R&B is rooted in gospel, blues, and soul, in raw emotional expression, and to purists, a monotone, pitchy delivery felt like a betrayal.
No matter what, it doesn't matter. If you black and you sing, they saying it's R&B. I feel like I also make alternative music sometimes. Maybe tomorrow I'll decide I want to make something else, you know? And it's just like, I don't want every single time I put something out, it to just be considered one thing.
The criticism gets specific. Her range is genuinely limited, which is not really up for debate. Her tone is often described as nasal and monotone, sometimes landing a half step or a full key flat, creating a barrier between the beautiful, flowery words she writes and what the listener actually hears. It cruelly compared her singing to a performer who had died mid-routine but did not yet know she was dead, and a general consensus formed that the description fit, that her voice had a haunted, withering quality. What makes it more striking is that Mariah herself seems to agree with the framing, if not the insults. She has said outright that she does not even consider herself a singer, that she just feels like she makes music. For a genre where the voice is sacred, that is a radical thing to admit. And it is why fans and critics simply cannot agree on her. Here is the twist, though. Reducing Mariah the Scientist to a bad voice misses the entire reason she has a devoted audience at all, because her gifts live somewhere else. Her signature and her appeal are her writing and her visual presentation, and on those fronts, even her critics tend to give her credit. She has a vision and executes it with clarity. Her album covers and single art are consistently eye-catching, fresh and simple, with a focal point that evokes emotion without trying too hard. Her latest album is built around a little green toy soldier, an image about being dedicated to a cause you would die for, while also being small, disposable, something boys play with and toss in a corner. It is love framed as war. The feeling that your devotion is toy-sized, that you are for show rather than for real. It is clever, cohesive songwriting from an artist with a real finger on the concept. But no conversation about Mariah the Scientist stays about the music for long, because in 2021, her life collided with one of the biggest forces in hip-hop. She began dating Young Thug, Atlanta rap royalty, after reaching out about collaborating on a song early in her career. On paper, the alignment was a powerful look, and being posted on the blogs alongside him did an enormous amount for her visibility. Her profile ballooned. Then, very early into the relationship, everything got complicated. In May 2022, Young Thug was arrested and indicted in a sprawling Georgia gang and racketeering case, the massive YSL RICO trial. Suddenly, the man she had just started building a life with was facing the possibility of life in prison, and the entire internet turned to look at her with one question. Was she going to stay? Was she going to walk?
What's up, baby? Merry Christmas.
How are you?
I love you.
I love you too.
I miss you. And I love you.
People became invested like it was a soap opera, tuning in for the next episode of the Thug and Scientist saga. Every move was analyzed. Every lyric was scanned for clues. Her personal life, once a footnote to the music, swelled into the main attraction, and for many, it began to overshadow the songs entirely. But here is the uncomfortable truth underneath it all. Whether the attention was romantic or ghoulish, it kept her name in constant rotation. Maybe not for the music, maybe mostly for the drama, but relevance is relevance, and no matter what she released, people were watching. Her relationship had become, for better and worse, an inseparable part of her brand, and she was about to lean all the way in. Rather than distance herself, Mariah stayed and made her devotion the centerpiece of her art. Her 2023 album To Be Eaten Alive became a full lover girl era, reflecting her commitment to Young Thug and the strain of loving through incarceration. She even released a song called From a Woman, paired with his From a Man, turning their separation into a public duet of loyalty.
I thought I'd seen it all before, and now I've seen so much.
In October 2024, after pleading guilty in exchange for time served and probation, Young Thug walked free, and Mariah called it more than what they had prayed for. But his homecoming was rocky and messy. A collection of embarrassing leaked jail phone calls surfaced, including audio of the two talking about other artists, and a now infamous call where the pair mocked another woman's looks while Mariah egged it on. Fans were not amused, especially since that same woman had recently brought Mariah out on stage. The scrutiny of her loyalty only intensified. People raised eyebrows at old moments of her seeming to defend Tory Lanez, and at reports she had been arrested and charged with battery after an alleged altercation at an Atlanta nightclub. To some, staying so publicly committed through the most humiliating stretches read as a woman being walked all over. To others, it was the ultimate expression of a real lover she refused to apologize for. Mariah framed it exactly that way, insisting people claim to want real lovers until they actually see one. There is a fair point buried in the mess that R&B has always romanticized heartbreak as the source of its best art. But there is also a harder truth, that glorifying being treated poorly in the name of love is its own kind of trap, and Mariah has struggled to find the medium between owning her story and letting it swallow the music whole. And then, against all of it, the music finally broke through in a way no one could dismiss. In May 2025, Mariah released Burning Blue, and it became the biggest song of her career by a wide margin at number 25 on the Billboard Hot 100, her first ever top 40 hit. And instead of free-falling, it held its position and kept gaining steam. It was resonating with the actual public, not just her niche, and even Rihanna named it her go-to karaoke song. She capitalized fast, tapping Kali Uchis for a follow-up, Is It a Crime?, that became her second consecutive Hot 100 hit. Then, in August 2025, came the payoff, her fourth studio album, Hearts Sold Separately, the full realization of the toy soldier war on love concept. It became her first full-length project to hit number 1 on any Billboard chart, topping the R&B albums list and giving her the highest charting album of her career. The girl the internet had written off as a viral punchline was suddenly a legitimate commercial force. The recognition kept coming. She was named Billboard's Women in Music Rising Star, a genuine industry stamp of arrival for someone who had spent years being clowned. And in December 2025, in the most dramatic punctuation to the saga fans had followed for years, Young Thug proposed on stage at an Atlanta concert, dropping to one knee as the screen behind them asked her to marry him. She said yes in front of the roaring crowd. So the question that has trailed her for years still remains unresolved. Is Mariah the Scientist the future of R&B, whether you like it or not, or a symbol of everything a struggling genre lost? The truth lives in the middle, between the polarizing voice and the undeniable vision, between the messy love and the #1 album. What is no longer in doubt is that she is here. She is winning. and she is not going anywhere. Anyway, that's it for this video, folks. Bye.